when someone hurt you personally, your feelings, and you're not going to bash them in business, because you can recognize that the business is still here to serve people. And even though you don't like them personally, doesn't mean their business is bad and it's not helping for people. You can separate the two and not watch them together. Your own personal feelings from someone else's business and its validity. That's empathy as we know it. And empathy as we know it is basically seeing what's really happening and knowing exactly what's happening and having the compassion for the other person, not to call them out, because you're not policing people just because you understand what's going on for them. Very disorganized video here today in studio. And I needed to just sit down to this chair right now because this is absolutely comfortable and I feel like I need more comfort. And I'm just gonna think out loud, because I have a program called Empathy as We Know It, and it starts April 15. And I love this program so much, and I think it's so important. I also been struggling to explain what this is to people. And this is the video in which you're gonna see through the struggle. And so I hope you don't mind me thinking out loud, and hopefully we get somewhere, okay? So the things about empathy that I learned is that what most people teach about empathy is, well, just feel into how they feel. And mind you, I can do that. I think some of us, we are born with the ability to feel into what's going on inside of other people. I don't know if this is attunement caused by mirror neurons, or really what the hell is going on. Or maybe this is like hyper-vigilant childhood where you have to scan everyone around you so you can predict danger. I don't know if that's where it came from, but I can do that. And if you are like me, you might be able to do the same. You can go into a room and you can know, this is anxious, this is nervous, this is happy. Like, you know what's up inside of people if you choose to do so. Sometimes you can pick it up as a background process, but sometimes you can just hone in on it and you can feel into what's up with people. And I think it's a cool gift, so to say. And I think it's more prevalent in females than in males per se, because perhaps that's how we were created, to be more attuned than man, because we are able to have children, and for that reason, just biology. But what I also noticed is that when you have the skill to kind of get what's happening inside of people, what you can also do is counterbalance that in a way to maintain harmony, right? So for example, if I have a client and this client comes to a call nervous or anxious or even angry, you immediately start counterbalancing to smoothen the field in a way. So this means that when we smoothen the field, essentially, if you are coming nervous, I'll make you laugh, so you kind of feel good. If the things are turning a bit too serious, I bring levity, so the energy of the conversation is not dense. And I think where people teach empathy, and where I have seen empathy being taught, is by just get a tune, like just what I explained to you, like you just smoothen the field, like how can we make sure that people feel comfortable, creating safety. And that, I think those are really good. And if you don't know how to do those things, that's something you might want to get into learning, because it creates ease, it's refreshing, it's in many ways this is very conducive to a conversation and whatever outcome you're looking for to be able to achieve in a conversation. But what I have found in the ways I see empathy, and okay, let's see what other people do with empathy. So some people use empathy strategically, right? So in a way that they're like, okay, if I care about you and if I show that we're on the same team, then I'm using empathy in a way to get information, to understand you, so I can recommend you a solution. And I think in a business, especially sales context, that makes sense as well, right? Some people use empathy as more of a, I got you, like, let me just remember some details about you. It's a simulational empathy, like cognitive empathy, more of let me understand you, let me use the words that you said so that you see we are on the same team. It's kind of the same that we just mentioned. It's less for the people and it's more maybe can be a little bit on what outcome do I want, right? So it's more of a little bit like a self-serving way. And I don't want to criticize people. That's kind of what I observed, right? So there is the empathy that is like feeling with you and like very in touch with the emotions, and let me just stay with you where you are. Let me hold space for you, like that empathy, very female orientation to empathy. And there is the more strategic empathy, in which we use empathy as a tool to get to an outcome. Now, I think empathy as we know it is not any of those. Because to me, the things that we just mentioned on the side of empathy is like, oh, I feel how you feel. Let me understand you. Let me meet you where you are. Let me hold space for you. Like these types of empathy. To me, these are a given, right? To me, that's something that I have as default, and maybe you have it too. So it's not something that you need to learn more of, like, unless you really want to hone in your attunement skills, and for that reason you would be thinking, okay, what is empathy as we know it? Why is this important and why is this relevant for me? I have empathy, I know what empathy is. Okay, cool. But it's not how I think about empathy as we know it. And I'm going to give you situations in which this has helped me to shape my understanding, and this is what we are going to explore more in empathy as we know it. And that is an empathy of the following. It's when your service provider reaches out to you and asks for payment upfront, which they didn't before, and saying it as if this is a given, and you know exactly that they are asking for a payment upfront, even though before it wasn't the case, because they need cash flow right now. But you are not going to question that, even if this was different before, because you understand that they actually need cash flow right now. And it's not about you, it's not about the connection, it's about them needing cash flow. Or another payment upfront is before they were okay to pay after the service was being delivered. Now they collect payment upfront because they don't want to chase you down after they've done it, and they want you to pay now so that they don't have to come and ask for money. But you understand this, and you're not taking it personally because you understand why they did what they did, and you're not going to say anything about it. Empathy as we know it is seeing when you have something you participated, let's say dance class, and you see how the teacher is copy-pasting messages instead of inviting you personally, and you're not saying anything because you understand that they want to save time, and it's easier for them to be like this, even if it's less personal to you. You're not gonna bash them and tell them, hey, why can't you just not send me this long message? I already know this information. Empathy as we know it is when you are in a situation with someone and you feel judged, and you feel like, okay, this is kind of triggering to me. I feel my heart is racing faster. I feel not very comfortable. And when you had a chance to speak up, you decided to not bash the person in front of everyone, but go talk to them in private. Or give yourself time to process the experience before you speak. And when you process it, you speak to someone in private. Empathy, as we know it, is understanding, can truth land here? Asking this question repeatedly. And this is the core of the program. And this means that, is this a situation in which I can express my truth, whether it has validity in the situation or not? And or how can I learn to hold myself if what I'm seeing is reality and I don't like it? It's how can I develop that emotional resilience? How can I understand when is the time to speak and when is the time to not speak? Empathy as we know it essentially is when we don't wash together human's behaviors from how they are in business. Is recognizing that someone can be a brilliant business owner and a really shitty person. And it doesn't mean that the business is not valid or the person behind the scene. We can separate the two and not wash them together. And that's empathy as we know it. Empathy as we know it is having some personal hurt and not letting that influence. I think this is the same kind of example, but empathy as we know it is when someone hurt you personally, your feelings, and you're not going to bash them in business because you can recognize that the business is still here to serve people. And even though you don't like them personally, doesn't mean their business is bad and it's not helping for people. You can separate the two and not wash them together. Your own personal feelings from someone else's business and its validity. That's empathy as we know it. And empathy as we know it is basically seeing what's really happening and knowing exactly what's happening And having the compassion for the other person, not to call them out, because you're not policing people just because you understand what's going on for them. Using that knowledge of understanding, you discern better. It's not your job to tell people how to be. That's empathy as we know it. And I think at its core is to dive into these realms of the empathy as we know it. That's the program. How do we build that inner resistance? How do we build that internal moral compass of when to speak, when to let go? Of how do we separate people in situations? How do we use our understanding, essentially, of people in a way that is not hurting anyone because we have empathy as we know it? How do we recognize when people are not using empathy in a way they should be, and get ahead of that to understand, okay, this might be their situation, let me just not interfere with that. It's not my style, but good for you. This not my style, but good for you is also empathy as we know it, right? It's discernment, right? Like I said, when to speak, when to let go, when to not say something. So diving into these fields is the core of empathy as we know it. And going into situations in which you become a person that is not weaponizing their empathy, is using it in a way that's conducive, and it leaves a positive impact on people, and using your insights and understandings to show up in a way that you're more informed and understanding the dynamics of human behavior, but choosing to be more relationally intelligent regardless of what you see. If you want to dive into these realms with me, Empathy as we know it starts April 15. It's currently priced at just $47. Once you secure your seat, you will receive an email and you'll find the details about how this program is going to be delivered and where. You have access to replays if you can't make it to the live program. But if these are the realms you want to dig more into, and these are the conversations you'd like to have more of, come to Empathy as we know it. This program has changed my mind. This program has been so helpful in understanding dynamics of humans with humans, and not to take things personally. Separate when need to separate. Understand when to speak, when not to speak. Master discernment. Looking at the data, not what we want things to be. Looking at the data and making decisions on those. It helps to become a better leader. It helps to become a better friend. It helps to become a better human. So these are the realms we're diving into. If you're interested in the program, I'd love to see you there. Good luck, guys. Bye.